I'm Phil Arard, chairman of the New York section of the American Alpine Club. In recent years, the sport of mountaineering has experienced an explosion of popularity. Accompanying this has been a corresponding increase in mountaineering films for both cinema and television. As a result, mountain film festivals have sprung up in the United States, Canada, and the rest of the world. However, the oldest and most prestigious of these mountain film festivals is the Trento Festival in Italy, where a prize is considered the equivalent of a Hollywood Oscar. In 1966, the film which you're about to see won the Premio Mario Bello Award. Alps of Wyoming is an early North American mountaineering classic. It was filmed in 1960 in the Grand Teton National Park by 4 amateur climbers: Olaf Soot, Dart Reinfort, Narcissa King, and Ants Limetz. They wanted to show others the beauty and moods of the high mountains they loved. They contributed their time and money to produce this movie many years before mountain climbing and outdoor life became popular in the United States. Olaf is standing here on the summit of the Grand Teton during filming. Dart is leading the friction pitch on the Exum Ridge. Narcissa, with her friend Hans Ruby from Switzerland, and Ants, together with Amy Martinson, relaxing after reaching the summit in a brief calm. Alps of Wyoming depicts the climb of the Grand Teton via the Exum Ridge, but in a broader sense, it is a timeless image of our western mountains and their beauty. Lowell Thomas saw it, liked it, and narrated the story. His enthusiasm gave the movie makers encouragement to continue. Now, more than 30 years later, Olaf has climbed and photographed the Rockies and Cordilleras from Point Barrow, Alaska, to Cape Horn, South America, and is still exploring other, less traveled trails to the top of the mountains. This is the videotape of Alps of Wyoming as it was entered in the Trento Film Festival.
Wyoming's mountains rise from a land of sage and grassy ranches and badlands, where the erosion has carved them from great masses of granite. It is in the mountains where there are forests to supply hiding places for the deer and meadows of grass for the elk and the moose. And it is to the mountains that the fisherman, the trail rider, and the skier come for recreation. Most eager of all is the climber, whose sport takes him halfway to heaven. This morning, a party of 4 have laid plans for the high summit of the Grand Teton. Hans Ruby, a visitor from Switzerland, is seeing the Tetons for the first time. Narcissa has climbed before, but Amy will need some nerve. She has learned the ropes, but never used her skills so near the sky before. Ants, while last on the trail, will select the route and lead much of the way when going becomes difficult. Slowly the landscape changes. The softness of the forest has gone. Everywhere, rock. The trail, so well trodden and gentle below, becomes rougher. And in this early season, a rivulet of melted snow. The last grassy ledges on the trail. Even the marmot knows it is lunchtime. Perhaps he has learned the schedule from other climbers with a sandwich to spare. High on the mountain slopes, the hot sun melts the winter's snow. Drop by drop it falls, giving birth to streams. They are small in the beginning as they run down over rocks and moss, joining in endless ways, and soon form cascading waterfalls that rush down the mountain. Finally, when the urging of the mountain slope ceases, the water goes on to where the lakes, mountains, and plains of Wyoming join to form the Grand Teton National Park. The name Jackson Hole was given to this mountain-rimmed valley below the Tetons, a natural gathering place for early fur trappers. Now the mountains and valley form a sanctuary where the elk and the bear can come out of hiding to enjoy benefits of Social Security. Here in the shadow of the mountains there is water and luxuriant growth, but farther away only arid lands of sage. The influence of the mountains is everywhere. Water, food, life, and inspiration all come from their heights. The Tetons do not rise like other ranges from steeper and steeper foothills. They fairly leap from the flat sage country, reaching up into the sky. Each lost in their own thoughts, the climbers rest in the sun before moving on. The going will be rougher than before. There's no longer a path, and the climbers must choose their own route. Climbers have taken a deliberate pass, no hurrying and little resting. The result is a comfortable rhythm of heart, lungs, and muscles, a purring motor for miles and miles. The trek to the mountain top is like a river in reverse, which thins again when the climbers leave the trail for a sketchy route over moraine, jumbled rocks, and snowbanks. Finally, they will branch off to experience the isolation of blinding snowfields. So far, a good kick makes the platform for the boot. But given cold weather or a shadow, the snow may be so hard the climber only stubs his toe. And high up, thin snow may conceal a treacherous sheet of tilted ice. Climbing at this altitude calls for low gear. It seems like a snail's pace in the company of such giant shapes. No great distance from that land of roads and churches and towns to these mountain crests, but a mile of altitude, and more of it behind than ahead. Far below, the shadows of the mountains spread across the lakes and valleys. Here at 11,000 feet, the sun still shines and casts the image of the saddle on the plains below. The last hours of daylight are spent in putting up the tents and checking the equipment for the coming climb. They scale the peak with their eyes, enjoying the cliffs all the more for a slight shudder of fear. The Grand Teton is climbed often in the summer, but still there have been accidents, and their plan is for a rock climb, not the easiest way. Tomorrow they will be upon the ridge on the skyline, but for tonight there is rest. The night is quiet up here and strangely unsettled, and yet, only 30 miles away in the town of Jackson, the first few steps after a night on the hard rock are always slow and unpleasant. The body, as if on its own, anticipating the great demands to be made of it, is reluctant to start. But the mind, aware of the enjoyment that lies ahead, urges it on. As always, with the new day, the doubts soon disappear, and silhouetted against the dawn, the climbers move up toward the difficulties that lie ahead. The ridge steepens sharply, and the broken rock of the saddle becomes a wall that rears up in a solid mass. Suddenly, the climbers are on Wall Street, the ledge that narrows and almost disappears into the ridge. Now they must use the rope to safeguard their movements. The rope, lifeline in the mountains. Each climber has probably slipped once or twice and found himself laughing when just at the moment of panic, the rope caught him up short. This surely is the greatest joy of mountaineering. Security in a position of danger, security brought about by the exercise of technique and safe reliance on someone else. Slowly, one by one, they move around the corner to the ridge and the sunlight. Now, with good firm rock to work on, there is no place for fear, only the slow acrobatics of upward motion, hands and feet in rhythmic coordination. It is still early in July, and the snow and ice of a frozen couloir give pleasant relief from the vertical rock. Then out on the edge of nowhere, the climbers move up and on. As they climb higher, the confidence and pleasure increase. The weather seems to be holding, and the obstacles passed without difficulty. But there are always difficulties, and Hans Ruby carefully pays out the rope as Hans starts to climb the steep wall ahead. It's the friction pitch, a stretch of bald rock. No cracks offer lodgment for pitons. The climber must simply work his way up using crumb-sized projections. He must test each before trusting it. This is no place to take hold of a loose handle. Once Hans arrives at a belay point, the tension relaxes a little. A slip would now be easy to check, but still each climbs with the same care as the leader. The foot needs no more platform than a half diam, if it is sound. The fingers feel hungrily for enough grip to maintain the balance. It is a matter of pride to seek no help from the rope. They find ledges where they can rest, revive themselves with a drink, and look down the rock and ice of that ridge below into endless space. But the good weather is not for long. Puffed clouds are boiling for trouble. The exposed ridge is no place to linger when a storm is in the making, and the climbers move rapidly over the brittle crest of snowfields to the final rock pitches that will lead them to the summit slopes. So far, the clouds are still scattered, and there is time to climb the V while it is dry. Steep and exposed, but not hard. More dizzy than difficult. A piton left by other climbers tests as firm and saves a little time in the labor of pounding. Climbers move up as rapidly as they dare. The weather will close with them almost as they close with the mountain. Finally, the upper snowbanks, softened by the morning sun. The slope has eased and they rush for the summit. The end of the trail. They can go no higher. They are standing on the summit of Grand Teton, 13,700 feet above the sea level. To the north, the high plateaus of the Yellowstone. Down below, the lakes and plains of Jackson Hole disappear into the haze, and the surrounding peaks, no longer outlined against the horizon, look like a pattern of huge boulders. Sitting by the plaque commemorating the first ascent, the triumph is too sweet to let go easily, and regardless of the menacing clouds, time is found to rest and eat. The rope has been taken off and coiled, but it has tightened the bonds of friendship. these clouds, they're for real. Black curtains of rain draped ominously across the valleys. Another of the mountain's hazards strikes at the climbers. But on the way down, the flurrying of snow is no more than a warning to proceed cautiously and avoid slips. They tie their two climbing ropes together to get the full 120 feet that they'll need. Using a sling for seat and a carabiner for brake, they start their way to safety. Cold and tired, the climbers slide down the rope like grotesque spiders to the ledge below. Precipitation on the precipice. But they are off the cliff now. They retrieve their rope, leaving only a little sling on the mountain, and then quick down the trough, the ordinary route, and return to their tents. Supper and sweet sleep. All in good time, too, with the storm whipping itself to full fury. Another Teton morning, clear as always. Life has its bright moments, even for the weary, and only the wet evidence can bring back the memories. The packs are lighter now, and the rocks so tiringly climbed are crossed rapidly in the descent. Suddenly, there is a relief from the tension and care of the climb as they slide happily down the snow that leads to the trail back to the valley. So they found their way to the summit, and the memories they bring back are many and varied, and they will linger on for times to come, keeping aglow in them the desire, the will, and the strength to once again return and find, perhaps, another less traveled trail to the top of the Teton.